Others will join, if not in person, via recording. So let me just get set up here. Let's kind of start from the top. So we're going to spend about the next hour talking about emotionally responsive practice and the way that we can support children emotionally by the things that we do intentionally in our classrooms. So I'm going to share some ideas. Please feel free to speak up. We will definitely have some question time at the end. But while I'm muting everybody to get us started, so there's not background noise, please do speak up if you have something to share, something to add, have a question to ask. You can do so by turning on your mic, or you can put it in the chat. So let's start off by thinking about what is needed for a child to be motivated to learn. Right? All the children are coming to our programs to do some kind of learning, whether we're thinking about academic learning, like language, math, or social learning, how to get along with others, how to participate successfully in the classroom community. That's also learning. So what does a child need to be able to do that successfully? Receptive, motivated learning requires a foundation of emotional well-being. So if you can picture, if you've come across Maslow's pyramid, our needs kind of have a hierarchy. We first need our physical needs to be met, then we need our emotional needs to be met, and then we can do things like learn, like work, like make impact on the world around us, be successful, hopefully, access our potential. But first, to be able to be open to learning, we need the foundation of emotional well-being so that young children experience school as a supportive and meaningful learning environment. I think often as we're getting ready to go back to school, we put in a lot of focus on what are my lesson plans going to look like? What are my procedures going to look like? How are we going to have the kids sign in and come in and follow the rules and learn new information? And all of that is truly important. We also need to think about what are we doing to support their emotional well-being so that they can come in and accomplish all those goals that we've set forth for them, so that they can build all those skills that is age appropriate for them. In any year, this is true. I would say all the more so this year. Children may have stronger emotional needs because they have experienced some difficult times. So let's look at what might get in the way. What might hold a child back from learning successfully? If you have any insight, you're welcome to put it into the chat. I'm also going to share. Stress is the big thing, is the big obstacle that tends to get in the way of a child's successful learning. Really of any person's successful experience, but for now we'll talk about children. And anything that we might think of that would be a challenge for a child, like not having breakfast, not sleeping enough the night before, getting into a little altercation with a sibling or parent before school, going through a big change in life, not feeling well. All of those are stressors. Now, stress is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that impacts us. So think about a time when you have been excited about something. That excitement is actually a form of stress. It's not too much stress, it's just right stress maybe, but it's a little bit of stress on your system. Think about a time when you maybe had to do something for which you were a little bit nervous. So you had to present in front of a crowd or something. And so you kind of had the adrenaline pumping because you were stressed. Again, might have been just right. If you look at this image I have on the screen, this is the stress curve. Now, if we have too little stress, we're not going to be able to learn. We're not going to be able to successfully participate in a classroom because we're inactive. Like our learning system is turned off. We're totally tuned out. We want some stress, a healthy level of stress. We want to get somewhere towards that upper hump or to the top. Top is peak performance. Got just enough stress to make sure that I do this well. I've got just the right nerves in place that make sure I'm on my toes. I hit fatigue. I hit exhaustion. It's too much for me. And it impacts me certainly mentally. And at some point, it can start to impact me physically as well with sickness or burnout. So children are coming into our programs with some kind of stress. And the thing about stress is that it is cumulative. So it's not like, well, I was stressed yesterday, but then like I cleared it. So, I erased the board. I can come back and I'm fine now. The example I like to use is a balloon. Picture a balloon. If you blow a little air into it, it gets a little bigger. If you blow a little bit more air into it, it's cumulative. It gets a little bit bigger. Think of stress as that air being blown into the balloon, and you blow and you blow and you blow. And if you blow too much, the balloon pops. The only thing that keeps the balloon from popping is somebody releasing some of the air, somebody releasing some of the stress. So in order for children to come into our classrooms and be successful, we need to make sure there are mechanisms in place to help them release the stress. Because just not sleeping last night's not a big deal. And just not having the best breakfast this morning or any breakfast is not a big deal, but not sleeping and also not having breakfast and also getting into a fight and also missing some skills that are required to be successful in school so that you're a little bit nervous when you walk in is a lot of air for that balloon to handle. Now, let's also keep in mind that different people experience stress differently. So for some people, they can take in stress and it can stay at a tolerable level. It's temporary, they manage it, okay. For some children, the same situations can actually become toxic, and toxic stress is when there is prolonged activation of the stress response systems, when the stress doesn't go away and is not mitigated. So what is the grand thing that mitigates stress? Supportive relationships. Our supportive relationship, our emotionally responsive relationship with a child is the valve that opens up and releases some of the stress from that balloon so that it doesn't pop. So it's not just that it's nice for children to have emotionally responsive practice in their classrooms, they need it. Trauma is what leads to toxic stress. So what is trauma? A sudden or unexpected experience that creates a lasting, substantial psychological impact. Well, every child that you're going to be working with has recently experienced a sudden or unexpected experience in some capacity. They were either in a structured program and suddenly could no longer participate and their life became very disorganized, or someone who they're close with and love became unwell, or maybe they experienced loss, or maybe their parent who was usually available was suddenly not available because their working schedule changed, or maybe whatever it is, something has changed for the children. That can be traumatic. Again, everybody experiences these things differently, and it depends on how much stress they previously were experiencing. Is it cumulative on top of already a lot of stress, or is this the only thing that they're really struggling with? And so maybe they can manage it. But it's important to recognize that some children will come in to start the year and will be fine, and some children will not be. And even if their experience seems to look similar, it doesn't mean that it's feeling the same inside for them. And some children may do well every single day, but then one day they're suddenly not. And that's confusing because stress is cumulative. And so they may have been able to manage up until yesterday, but then something happened and they can't anymore. A big stressor that a lot of children may be dealing with is the unknown. They do not know exactly what's happening in their life. They do not know if things are going to change. They may have that sense from their families. I'm going to school and I don't know how long I get to stay for. I don't know when things are going to change. Am I going to become unwell? Is someone in my life going to become unwell? So that's also a stressor. And here's the thing. We learn differently when we are under stress. These are images of actual brain architecture. That in normal situations, there are a lot of connections between our neurons. That means lots of learning, lots of things integrating in our minds. But when someone has experienced too much stress and they're under toxic stress, then there's actually fewer connections. The neurons are damaged. So My goal is not to scare anybody, but I think it's helpful to kind of have some background of what's going on for the children, possibly inside their minds and inside of them, so that when we're designing what goes on in our classroom, we can make sure that we are offering something that mitigates the stress, that serves as a buffer so children can develop in the best way they can. So it's going to start with us. It's going to start by our noticing their needs and creating a strong, positive relationship. And here's why that relationship matters so much. Because humans naturally seek attachment figures to regulate their state. If I'm really stressed and I connect myself with someone who's calm, it will be easier for me to calm. If I am really stressed and I connect myself to someone who is really stressed, then we will both stay stressed and probably become even more stressed. That's what attachment and attunement looks like. And we are naturally designed to seek comfort and support in the adults around us from birth. So when a child comes in and is struggling, they're going to seek you. They're going to seek to attach to somebody who can help them regulate. That's why that relationship is so important. They need to see you as an attachment figure. They need to feel comfortable connecting to you so they can download your calm, so they can benefit from your composure. And we have to be careful because emotional states are contagious. When somebody does something that throws us off, it can be very to react, to simply act back, like that knee-jerk reaction. Our goal is to be emotionally responsive, not emotionally reactive. We don't want to react with our emotion. We want to respond to theirs. In order to do that, there needs to be a pause between what happened and what I do because of it. Otherwise, we catch their state. And it's a trap. Sometimes, because we get put into an emotional state in our minds, we model behaviors that we actually want to eliminate. Don't grab! And we grab something out of a child's hand, right? There's no screaming in this room, right? Sometimes we model those behaviors or we reinforce it even though we want it to go away because we went into reaction mode. In order to offer emotionally responsive practice, we have to first make sure that we're holding in a good emotional space. And really that in our minds, we're not emotional at all. We're in our logical thinking executive part of our brain. Otherwise, we'll catch their state. And then it all kind of goes down from there. So let's take a look at this. This is an attachment guide. Just to give a sense, here's what it might look like for a child when they're being dropped off in school or when they're being reunited with their family at pickup time, based on where they are holding in their levels of attachment. So a child who's really secure, maybe distressed momentarily, but then they quickly recover, they go off to play, and they can be successful in the classroom. When it comes to reuniting with their family, they may be a little bit disappointed to leave their friends and activities, but they're excited to see their family. They positively join them, and they're ready to move on and transition. A child who is struggling with attachment or hasn't experienced quality attachment may look different because that attunement piece is what has guided their development. And they've been attuning to someone who also was anxious or also wasn't calm and able to guide them emotionally. So a child may be extremely distressed and hard to soothe. What they need is us to stay calm so that we can then connect with them and be a more positive attachment figure, a more successful attachment figure. So when you see the children come in the morning, rather than seeing, oh, this child just drop them off and run, they'll be fine, which we may struggle with this year because the parents, for all the programs I've spoken to, parents are not coming into the building. But when we see that, and we see a child that just got left and is under stress, they're acting distressed, think about, what does this tell me about the attachment they need right now? What can I do to offer that attachment support so that they can then come into our classroom, soothe, and be ready to play? And this goes beyond the child. If stress is cumulative and children regulate by their attachment figures, then the level of stress that their family is experiencing is going to play a role here. So you can do lots of wonderful things in your classroom with the children, but if you can actually reach out to the families as well, you'll be able to help the child further. So something you might want to consider: what kind of relationship do I have with this family? Can I check in with them and see how they're doing, both to gather information as well as to maybe offer support if it's needed, or to connect them with support. Maybe it's not your role, but perhaps your director can help with that. But families play an important role in how connected a child will be when they get into the classroom. Helping the family and connecting with the family will help us better understand their children. So in order to customize for each child's needs and respond to their life experience, we want to find out information about them, as much information as we can, and ideally some of it before we start. So think about what you might ask families and how you might do so to find out where their child may be holding in the stress curve, where they may be holding emotionally. You might create a parent survey and have the parents answer it, either digitally. It could be a little form you email them, or something that you could give out the first day of school if you can't reach them before, if you've already started the first weeks or so. Ask some questions about what the child's experience was like since they've last been in school. That may give you some clues about where they're holding emotionally. If the family doesn't have the answers for you, or perhaps even in addition to the answers the family gives you, think about some questions you might want to observe for in your classroom, so that you can find out more information about how the child connects with others, how the child manages transitions, how the child responds at drop-off and pickup time. This gives you clues to the level of stress they may be experiencing and to how you may respond to their emotional needs. Because if we know what it is that's stressing them out, then we know what kind of support we can offer. So here are some ways that we can try and create that safety for all the children, and then of course specifically for the ones we identify as more highly stressed. So we can incorporate the word safe into our rules and guidelines and discipline. And it sounds like such a tiny little change, but when your brain hears the word safe, then it sends a little signal that says, you're okay. You are secure. Things are going to be fine here. We want children to get that message. So the goal in the classroom is for me to be the safe keeper. My job as the teacher is to keep the children safe. And their job is to help keep it safe. And all of our rules and guidelines align with that. Ways that we make sure safety is achieved. Our discipline, when we are guiding and redirecting a child's behavior, is because something happened, not that was bad, but that was unsafe. And we want to make things safe again. So incorporate the word safety into your procedures as much as you can. Model a calm environment. So as you're setting up, think about, what tools do I have in place that can help somebody if they're not feeling calm? What am I putting in this classroom that feels calm? Someone mentioned on the last session we just had, lavender. Very often we think about what goes on the wall as visuals. We think about the auditory signals. We forget about the olfactory ones, about the smells. But our sense of smell is a very important one. Are there things in the classroom that support calm in the way that sense-wise, right? Are there things that we could take out of the classroom to help it feel more calm? So lots of bright colors, things that flash, things that make a lot of noise, that creates arousal. And if you're totally calm, that's fine. But if you came in already stressed, then more arousal on top of your current state of stress may put you over the top. And then you'll struggle. So create a calm environment with more muted colors, soft sounds, modeling for the children the tone of voices we use. Make your voice match mine so that it's calm for everyone and they don't have to scream over one another. Teach self-regulating skills. So rather than just supporting a child in the moment of distress, teach them what they can do if they're struggling. What tools can they access that will help them? Whether it is squishies and emotion charts, or if it is a little quiet space that they can go to that has pillows and is comfortable, or is just alone, help them find ways to find the safety they need. And be aware of your own tone of voice and body language. So with a mask on, it may be hard to keep your own tone of voice low. Or I know for myself, I usually talk very quickly. And as much as that gets a lot of information across, it can be stressful to some people. And I've seen it in my own students at times when I would get excited and I talk very fast and they would sort of get like frenetic. You have to be very aware of the messages you send in your tone of voice and body language to help create safety. And think about what kind of mirror you want to be. When a child is acting emotional in the classroom, they're looking to you to reflect back and help them build their self-awareness. So if a child is under stress and we say, you look really sad, you were hoping you could have the first turn with this toy, then we are like that mirror where the child sees exactly what she is. She sees herself as she is. But if a child is struggling emotionally and because we want children to feel good, we try to happy them up, stress out. We say, here, I want a fire truck. Or a child is stressed out and we say, hey, do you want to help me with this? We distract them from what they're feeling. That's like the funhouse mirror. Or we try to get them, oh, remember you liked this yesterday, let's do that instead. Or, oh, it's okay, don't be sad. Don't be sad, we can deal with this. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay for children to have these emotions. And our role, if we're being emotionally responsive, is to mirror back to them how they're feeling with our empathic messages. You're feeling really angry. He took your toy and he didn't even ask. So that we're giving them an accurate picture of themselves and how they're feeling. So all emotions are respected and welcome. Reactions, not necessarily. So just because you're feeling angry doesn't mean you can throw something at someone. It doesn't mean you can push or hurt someone. We don't welcome all actions, but all emotions are respected. And it's important for us to notice our emotional states. And it's important for the children to then learn to notice theirs. And giving them that empathic message will help them not only feel welcome and supported, but identify what they are feeling. When we focus on those distractions and happying people up, then we kind of guide the children to avoid uncomfortable feelings, avoid that discomfort. So when you avoid discomfort, but then you grow older and you continue to do so because that's what you've learned, then you get upset and you withdraw and ignore everybody. Or you get upset and you binge watch lots of shows. Or you get upset and you eat a tub of ice cream because you're not okay with those feelings of discomfort that come with a strong feeling. We want the children to be okay with it and then to learn what to do about it and how they can get themselves back to a more secure place. That comes with being emotionally responsive. So here are some tools that we can give the children to help them make meaning from their lives when it gets difficult and it gets uncomfortable, so they don't have to stay there forever. They just have to identify it, be okay with it, and then we help them move along. So some tools, acting things out. A child is struggling, they're trying to figure it out. They will naturally, if you have a dramatic play space, they will naturally act it out with the dramatic play area or with other tools you have. So if you have little play people, or they may take things and turn them into tools to act things out, naturally children will reenact things that happen in their lives. Giving them an intentional way to do it can be helpful. I was working with a family whose child experienced something that was very frightening to them. And the child kept waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares because he was continuously frightened. So we talked, and I made a plan with the mother that she sat down with her son and rewrote the story. So while we couldn't change what had actually happened, we pretended that we could change the ending, and then he was able to act it out and sort of regain control over his life. He was able to feel empowered in a situation that he had previously felt powerless. And that helped him respond. So that would be an example of drama, giving children the opportunity to draw how they're feeling, draw how they wish it would be, can be helpful as well. If a child is not comfortable drawing or is not drawing in a way that is expressing their ideas clearly enough that works for them, it doesn't have to work for us, it has to work for them, allow them to dictate the story and you write it down so that they can make meaning. We went on vacation last summer, and while we were out playing in the yard, most of the family decided they were done and went inside. By mistake, my 3-year-old got left outside. Nothing unsafe happened, but he was frightened. And while he was outside for the few moments till we realized and opened the door, some people came by that he interpreted as scary. It was a bunch of teenagers, and they were being very loud, and he was scared. So he talked about it for a long time. And I, of course, opened the door, welcomed him back in, but he talked about it for a long time. One time, after months, he tells me, you know what happened when we were in North Carolina? I flew over the house and came in the back door. Now, obviously, he did not fly over the house, right? And he did not come in the back door. In fact, I opened the front door and let him in. But he needed to rewrite the script and dictate it to me so he could gain control over what was going on for him. And giving him a chance to play that through was very helpful to him. I want to share with you some other ideas where we can support the school-home connection, but I've got a little guy who's not so happy here, so I'm going to have to pause for just a moment. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay, so had to be emotionally responsive to a little guy in distress. Here are some things we might do to help respond to what might be the current themes for the children. So a child may struggle with their school-home connection. They've been home for a long time, and now they are going back to school, and they may be missing home. So you might create a little home necklace, something they can wear that has a picture of their family on it. If they're allowed to bring objects into school, then maybe they can have a transitional object that they bring in that is meaningful to them, and they can keep it in their cubby and use it when they need to seek comfort. So whether it's a stuffed animal or something that's really special to them, a favorite car, that's theirs, not for always and for play, but to save in their cubby as their transition object when they come in the morning or any other time they're missing home. Maybe you can do a treasure hunt and look for things that are in the classroom that are similar to things they have at home. So the children can help recognize, hey, this is just like home. This is comfortable. I can see, I found some of the same books that I have, or there's blocks or train tracks, just like I have at home. There's dolls, and there's one that matches my favorite doll. Maybe the children can practice being teacher at home. So rather than bringing home into school, we can give them some tools for bringing school home, teach them a song, and then guide them in teaching their family. And maybe we continue the Zoom thing, though I know for many it's been the bane of their existence, but there is an opportunity that has been introduced now that we have gone into people's homes virtually to learn with their children. And that may be a way to bring families into the classroom. So if a child can't come into school, can they Zoom in to the classroom? Can we invite parents to come into the classroom to join, whether it's the Shabbos party or some other celebration, all together or on a rotation? Maybe it's one family per week, one parent per week that comes in and joins the class to strengthen the school-home connection, so that we are building our relationship not only with the children, but with their families. And the children recognize this as a safe place because, hey, if my family is welcome, then it must be okay. A related theme that may be going on for the children is together and apart, insecurity and separation. Will school stay open? These are things that may be weighing heavily on the children's minds and hearts. So let's think about what emotions come along with coming together, what emotions come along with separating, and how we can help the children work through this. If school stays open, how will we feel? If school doesn't stay open, how will we feel? Even giving the children physical objects that come together and can be taken apart as a concrete way of exploring this idea. Take some Duplo, take some Lego, separate them, put them together. Have a conversation, not because we're going to solve the problem, but because it's giving the children a chance to work through those ideas that they may not even be able to fully identify, but are very much going on for them. Children also need to feel powerful. They need to feel like they have some control in their lives. In general, though, as young children, they control very little, right? Mostly the adults make the decisions. And particularly at a time when we're not sure what's going to happen next, they may feel even more powerless. So look for opportunities to support the need for power in some children. If you see children getting into conflicts more easily, or telling people they're first, they're in charge, I'm going to show you how to do it, I'm going to tell you what to do, or playing big bad, that's a cue that this child is feeling really powerless and is trying to regain power. You can support this by incorporating choices. So instead of making all the decisions in the room, decide what you want the end result to be, but give the children 2 ways to get there. We're going to be going outside. Shall we walk to the playground, or shall we jump, or shall we tiptoe? Shall we clean up with the music playing and see if we can beat the music, or shall we clean up in silence? That's for the general group. Maybe the choice is about a particular child's need. So a child's feeling emotional, they're really sad, they're really upset, they're really anxious. I offer empathy. You're feeling really worried because you're not sure who's picking you up at the end of the day. I can't change that necessarily, but what I could do is offer the child 2 positive choices. Would you like to draw a picture about how you're feeling? Or would you like for me to help you call the office to find out who's picking you up? Right? Either one's going to be okay with me. One of them is going to be okay for the child, hopefully, and they get the power to choose which one. Maybe the child needs to go to line and they're not lining up, or maybe they need to clean up and they don't feel like cleaning up right now. So I'm not going to ignore the expectation, but I can guide them with a choice. It's time for cleanup now. Would you like to clean up on your own, or would you like my help? And let them choose. Support superhero play. Often when kids bring superhero play in, there are teachers that feel a little bit uncomfortable with it. We want everyone to stay safe. We don't want the big bam crash. We don't like guns. Whatever the rules are in your school, you need to honor. But recognize that superhero play is a way for children to feel power in their lives. So they're working through, I'm the good guy, I'm getting the bad guys, bam, bam, all was safe. They're saving themselves and the world from all the not good things that can happen. So give them a chance to do it. Maybe you need to set some parameters for how to do it well, but give them a chance to explore good versus bad. Give them a chance to feel like I can control something, and offer them the opportunity to explore what if. So if they're worried about something, well, what would happen if? If you could decide what would happen, what would you do? Let them work that through so that they can wrap their minds around what's going on. Another theme that may be going on for children, to which we need to be emotionally responsive, is health and healing. Maybe they're worried that someone's going to get sick and they're not going to get well. Or maybe they're worried that someone's going to get sick and they hate being sick. So let them work that through. Help them think about, remember when you weren't well? Remember that you got better? Thinking about what helps us heal. Maybe consider towards the beginning of the year adding some doctor play things to your dramatic play center so they can work through those themes of health and healing, of unwellness and becoming well. Because that's something that a lot of people are talking about at home. What are things we do to stay healthy? So that's going over all the hygiene things, right? And they are experiencing it. They're sanitizing, they're hand washing, and let them work through it in an empowered way where they get to be in charge and write the script through dramatic play. Some other things that we put into place that you likely have already, but help respond to children's emotions are classroom routines. So making sure you have dependable routines, setting a structure that is consistent and expected, and a system for how we let the children know when there's change. So that's through a visual schedule that can be easily manipulated so that I could say, we always have snack before outside time, but today, because it's Rosh Chodesh, today, because there's a special event, we're going to have a little change. Here's what's going to happen. So we're having dependable routines and we're walking children through any changes. Think about rituals that honor the child and the family. So do you have a family tree in your classroom, or family photos in an album so that the children can find themselves and find comfort in their families and they're welcomed here? In another session I did, a teacher shared that they were honoring families in the classroom, and the other children ended up learning the names of the other children's siblings and all about their family just through having those photos available. I think they put them actually on blocks and it became part of the block center. So that helps children feel secure and stay connected, stay feeling connected to their family, even when they're far apart. Think about your curriculum. There's certainly things that we are required to teach. We want to make sure that we're talking about the chagim before they happen. We want to make sure that we're hitting all of the language and math requirements. But we want also to offer relevant curriculum. So if a child is really struggling with their sense of safety or their sense of health, or if hygiene is really what we're all dealing with, then put it into the curriculum and learn about it formally so that you're not rushing through what they need because you got to get back to what you have to do. That is what you're learning, what they need. Give many avenues for self-expression because drawing may not be it for everybody, but there should be a way that children can express their feelings. Tell stories that talk about feelings and how children responded to those feelings and how they overcame when they were struggling, and give the children lots of opportunities to practice making choices. Some additional ways to help: teach the children to seek help when they're struggling. Don't assume that they will. Teach it as a procedure, model it, let them notice, practice. So I would stand in front of the classroom and say, when I'm struggling here, I can go to someone for help. I'll stand up, I'll walk over to the other teacher, and I'll model the words, I need help. I'll ask the kids, what did they notice, right? Then I'll give a child a chance to practice that. Or when a child does it, I can highlight that. You went to a teacher when you needed help. That was helpful, rather than seeking other things when we're struggling. It may be less appropriate. Offer validation when a child shares information about what they're struggling with. So when a child offers something that is hard for us to hear or is uncomfortable, because very often to happy them up and we don't like discomfort, we reassure them. We say, okay, it's all good. It's going to be okay. But actually what children need when they offer that is validation. You were really scared when you heard that, when that happened, right? They thunder and they we don't want to just tell them it's going to be okay. We want to first say, it was a scary noise. You didn't like it. Offer empathy and validation first, rather than discounting or minimizing their feelings and fears. When we boost self-worth, it also helps a child emotionally because they know I matter. I belong here. I am connected. So offer them opportunities to express their unique contributions to the classroom, what they can do to help others, offer them opportunities to share their creativity. Notice what each child has mastered. There are some children that naturally master things that are very obvious in the classroom. A child who learns to read early, a child who recognizes their letters, a child who follows directions well. But what about a child who learned to ride their bike? What about a child who's really good at climbing? Is there a way to show mastery? Even if your way of learning and the things you mastered don't naturally and easily find their way into the classroom. Let's find ways to bring it into the classroom because every person needs something that they can show they have mastered so that they can feel that sense of emotional well-being and then can connect well with others and support positive peer relationships. So we always encourage children to share and we want them to take turns and we want to mitigate conflict. But we also want to show them how to initiate those positive connections with friends. We want to give them opportunities to do things together by setting up games that involve pairs or opportunities to do things with just another child or in a small group. So think about the way we are supporting those positive peer relationships, not just when they're struggling, but also learning how to connect positively. And as you learn the needs and what they each respond best to, think about developing individualized care plans. So you may not need to act out situations for everybody. You may not need to rewrite the story for everybody, but there may be some children that either have different experiences or experience things differently that need your extra support. And make it formal, write it down, stick it in their file, share it with the other teachers that work with them. Here's what I noticed really helped this child when they were struggling. Here's a struggle I noticed this child has been having consistently. And I'm wondering if we can think about ways that we can support them to lower their stress level and help them emotionally. I want to take a moment to share this clip with you. And if not, I'm excited to share it with you. So I'm just going to make sure I'm sharing sound.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Had you seen that before? Oh, I love it. I love it. And I think it reminds us that our goal in emotionally responsive practice is not about making it better and solving. It's about creating a connection and offering the support we can so that a child knows they're safe enough to get through this, knows that they've got somebody there for them so they can get through it. So here's a reflection. Are you a goat or a bear? Like, thinking about the 2 animals there in the video, which one do you think is your more go-to place? And in which situations? Because are you more likely to be a goat, trying to find the silver lining? It's really okay. It's gonna be fine. Yeah, I'll offer some sympathy. And in which kind of students, towards which kind of students, and in which kind of situations are we more likely to support like a bear? Going to that tough place because we found something inside ourselves that was just like that, and being there with them, like sitting in the pit so we can hold their hand and hopefully come out the other side together. That's the goal here with emotionally responsive practice. So I'd like to stop here to give you a chance to ask questions, to share your own ideas, and to offer maybe some ways that you are planning to put something into place, or if anything in this presentation resonated with you that you may try. And if you're willing, you can turn on your mic. So does anyone have a way that they think they may apply some of these ideas, or something you might do to respond to children when they are feeling emotionally needy, or when they're struggling emotionally? We want a child's attention. We want them to focus on the things that are important for us, or the things that are important for them to pay attention to. In the classroom, then we will use whatever cue you use, and we will lead circle, story time, whatever it is, and try to get their focus. Sometimes we'll notice some children are very unfocused. Some children have trouble. When a child has something on their heart, or something that's distracting their mind, they're not going to focus. So we have really two options. And so I'll share this last idea with you to think about. Distraction and focus are not so much a matter of whether or not you have focus. Everyone's got focus. It's just what you're focusing on. So when a child's focus is all about what's not working for them, what they're worried about, what's going on in their home, or their heart, or their mind, then yeah, they're not going to pay attention to what you're doing in your lesson. Not because they're not focused, it's because they have another focus. I think when we're emotionally responsive, rather than trying to keep getting the child's attention over our way, okay, look this way, here, I called your name, you shouldn't be turning the other way, don't play with those toys, we can recognize they're unfocused because their focus is elsewhere. And rather than distracting them from that elsewhere, we can try to be where they are. Try to find what's going on in their minds that they are focused on, and give them a chance to work it through. Give them a chance to figure it out so they can get it off their minds. And then they're much more likely to be able to focus on what we have in store for them, what we have planned for them. Because if it stays in their minds, then nothing we say is going to get through. They're too busy thinking already about something else. So consequences or distractions are not what's going to do it. Shifting our focus to theirs is much more likely to help them become attentive. Michelle, go ahead.
I don't think a child has the capabilities to tell us what's going on in their heart that's making them distracted.
Yeah, that's a good point. Some children are more attuned or old enough to be able to communicate. Many are not. But they give us clues, right? Their behavior is clues that says there is something. And so part of it is stepping into a child's shoes and trying to see life from their perspective as best we can. And sometimes we guess because we don't know exactly. I can see you're having a really big feeling. And it tells the child, I'm here for you with that big feeling. And sometimes they can tell us, yeah, it was no fair, this happened, right? It doesn't mean they're going to give us all their deepest psychological reasons, but they can tell us something often about what's going on for them. If we know, because we gathered information from their families, or we've been watching them and collecting data, if we know a little bit about what's going on for them, then maybe we can be their mouthpiece to say, I've noticed you've been really sad lately, and I know that this is going on, and that's hard. It's not necessarily like a therapy session where they're going to bear every detail of their subconscious with you, but you can give them a little bit of a handle on those feelings. And usually they give us some kind of indication if we were successful or not. So if you offer empathy and you hit the nail on the head, you'll see their tense shoulders kind of release. You might see their face relax, or they may be more willing to then go back and participate in whatever was going on. But if we were wrong in our guess, it's not a problem, but you'll just see that the child remains just as stressed, just as tense, and then we guess again. But I've used emotionally responsive practice with children for years, and it's amazing how much they respond when it resonates with them, and that you can use it from infants. Even if they can't use the words to tell you how they're feeling, you can say, he just took your toy and that's upsetting. The child hears in your voice, I'm here for you. They understand in your words, I'm here for you. And they're able to attune to that. So it still is really helpful, even if they don't have all the information about what's going on. Any other comments, questions, things you might try? So you're welcome to put anything in the chat if you'd like or speak up. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you for your time. I hope that there was something in the presentation that particularly resonated with you and that you can then go apply. And I'll ask that in the last few minutes, think about, and in the moments that follow after the session, think about what it is that you might do differently because we've come together in this learning experience, so that we're actually making a difference in the children's lives in a new way.
Thank you.
You always make a difference, but in a new way. Thanks so much.
Thank you.